It is May 5th, 2022. I'm Michelle Hirsch, and we are here with Noe Baez. Most people know him better as Such Styles. And we're at the Pyle Center. Thank you so much for being here with Connected Tempe
Thank
and,
you. Honored to be here.
answering these questions to share your life story.
Thank you.
We like to start where you started. Where and when were you born?
I was born in Phoenix, and that would have put the date, the genesis would have been 1968. We lived out there, and my parents they were in a new neighborhood in South Phoenix, Southern and 19th Avenue. And within like a decade, my father was kind of like, hey, I'm gonna move out and move over east to Tempe. And so I was probably right before my teens, and we moved over to South Tempe. And it was for me growing up on the south side of Phoenix, it was a big change. There was probably only about 3 Chicano families in the neighborhood. And back then I would say it was kind of like upper middle class, you know? In South Tempe, the geography was totally different than what it is now. But me coming from the south side of Tempe, it gave me a little bit more liberty, to do some different things. And so, yeah, that's kind of the jump start there.
And so, what was either the neighborhood or the cross streets, the main cross streets? Of where
you're
you lived?
looking at about between Guadalupe Road and McClintock Baseline, that area right in there, Rural Price, which the freeway wasn't there yet. It was just Price Road that ran through there.
And tell us a little bit about your parents. What did they do, and siblings?
Okay. My parents are both from Texas originally, South Texas, Tejanos, is the word. And they would actually maneuver around and follow the crops, and they would, work in the fields, up to Idaho, from what I gather. And then they made their way down to Arizona, and they just settled here. My older sister was born in Idaho. I have 2 sisters, and I have a little brother, and so this is kind of where we came. Now, when he was out here in Arizona, for as long as I could remember, my father was a very hard worker. He still is, I'm sure. He's a hard worker, and I, as an understanding as an individual in the workforce, I understand this now, that if you show up on time, you show up before you're supposed to show up, and you're diligent and you're faithful, and you show some assertiveness, there's room for promotion. It really is in the marketplace. And my dad always seemed to find himself in a supervising position. So he did well simply because he was a diligent hard worker, and he was clever and wise. My mom, she worked for Motorola when Motorola was on the north end of Tempe, Phoenix border up there.
Yeah.
By Papago Park out in that area. My dad worked. This is a really cool, and I'm gonna segue into some cool little stories and shut it down if it sounds weird. But my dad worked for a company called Corel Industries, which was right next to the Togera Castle, the Tovry Mansion. Okay? And so I remember we would drive over there and pick him up at night, and we'd wait in the car, and then my father would come out, the office come out, and then we would, get my father would get in, and then we would actually, prior to my father getting in, my mom would turn the lights on, and we'd move the car over to get closer to him so he could to walk as far. And when we walked, and with the headlights on the car, it panned over. I mean, we're literally like 8 feet or so, or 10 feet, 12 feet outside the rock wall, which was very decrepit at the time. And you would see the coyotes. And we're kids, and we're like, whoa! It was just amazing because it was full desert. I think the stockyards were across the street. And so it was really, as a kid, you're like, whoa. And the Tovry Mansion, it was, at that time, it didn't seem really well kept. It seemed very kind of creepy. There wasn't that many lights out there on that in Washington. And so it was a really cool experience. But my dad worked over there for Corral Industries. Then he transferred over to another company. They sold something as part of a company, and then he was part of the package deal because he had the knowledge of what the industry was.
Oh, excellent.
But anyways, I just wanted, because that was just so cool as a kid. Like,
yeah.
In the summers, we would we'd get the bikes. When my dad put them in the back of the truck, he'd go work during the day, of course, and we would jump on the bikes. And we're in North Tempe. We're just on the bikes. And there was like the Wax Museum, Legend City.
Oh, Legend City, yeah.
There was a go-kart place that was near there.
Oh, I remember the go-kart place.
And it was just it was still Arizona wilderness, and as a kid, that was so cool. So many jackrabbits, roadrunners. I rarely see roadrunners now,
True. And
I used to see them so often. And then the lizards. And so it was really just a really cool, it was fun, It was like a Stand By Me type of film, and we'd go with our friends and we'd go do stuff like that. But yeah.
Kind of this freedom to be able to be out in the wild, and ride your bikes and explore and feel the freedom to be able to do that.
Yeah, it was
and it felt safe.
Yeah, I was blessed to do that. And now I couldn't think of Champ and Christian doing that. We have 2 sons, so I couldn't see them doing that. But back then it was just, I don't know, it was just, I'm grateful that I got to experience that as a young person,
Well, and we'll talk a little bit about you growing up, but since you mentioned your sons, let's talk about how you met your wife, your wonderful, beautiful wife, and your 2 boys.
Okay, that's a really cool story. It was actually a blind date. And I had a cast on at the time, and while we would vacation in Texas, I broke my leg playing football out there. And so a good friend of mine called me and says, "Hey, I'm gonna meet with this gal, and I need you to come and be my wingman because it's her and her cousin." And I knew of my wife. Her name was Annette Samaniego. I knew of her popularity, but she was like up here. And I said, "Man, I got a broken leg. I feel like an idiot." I said, "I don't want to go." I said, "I want to go, but I don't feel adequate, And he says, all right. So he called another friend of ours, and then he called me back. He goes, he couldn't make it. Man, I just need, be with her and talk with her. So that was the blind date, kind of like connect. And so we met that night, and I'm going to share a little bit of some kind of romantic things, but it was kind of cool. And so the very initial night, we hung out, and she was really outgoing and very giddy and comical at my expense. And I was young and very straight, macho, I was too cool, the cool guy. I didn't say much. And to be honest, she's a knockout. My wife was a knockout, and she was sought after. She'd be telling me, no, if she was here right now, stop it, no. And I was kind of like, oh man, that she's clowning me, And we had left, we went over to Kiwanis Park, the 4 of us. And my friend and the gal he was interested, they walked over to the playground. And because I had a broken leg, I'm not getting out of the car. So I'm in the car. She came over, she sat in the car with me, and we had this really cool conversation. And she was real brilliant. I said, oh my gosh, she's brilliant, And then before the night was over, we had our first kiss. Okay, and here's the segue, interesting part, was that when we had our first kiss, while I was embracing, kissing her, I pulled away, and I was like, whoa. And she was like, what's wrong? I said, deja vu, if you want to call it that. I had a dream that I was kissing you. And wasn't that amazing? And then it was like, whoa. And I don't know if our souls collided or something. And so, you're young and you're trying to figure out stuff. You're 15, 16 years on the planet, only got 16 springs underneath you the season. And you're like, okay, you're just trying to, fumble through this. And so, she was at Corona, I was at Marcos. And then our senior year, she came over to Marcos, and we graduated together. And then now I'm kind of speeding up a little bit with all the details. And we had gotten married out of high school, probably about a year, it was 86, 7, 8, a couple of years out, 88. And we had gotten married. And then 3 years, 9 months later, our firstborn son was born, Champ. That's And then 6 years later was Christian. And so that's us and our little family. And, initially starting out in marriage, and I was just so clumsy and awkward. And I just, you're just trying to figure out life. And I think I was probably more of a chore for her, But, and I'm not just saying this because I'm in front of the camera, but I truly am smitten by Annette. And at an art event we were at in Hollywood, I failed to remember her title. I guess she was kind of curating part of the event, and her parents were there. and they're from California, and their parents are elders, and they shared something with me that was just beautiful, because they were like, "Hey, you and your wife, you seem to connect." I said, "Yeah, I'm just really smitten by her, you know." And then I said, "But initially I was clumsy. I kind of gave her grief." And they said this. They go, "In our marriage, same thing." They said, "But now later," she goes, "you're reaping those seeds. All the you know, I don't want to do metaphoric about it. The years where there's no rain and you're trying to have crops, or you're trying to go through this and make it work."
Oh, I love that.
Isn't that beautiful? And they said, "Now you're reaping." And I was like, "That's amazing." And then Champ, he had told me, he says, "I believe you guys got your second wind of youth." And there's like a proverb or something in the, I don't know if it's in the Torah or the ancient text, but it's a proverb. And he told me, he goes, it says, "I'll renew you and I'll renew your youth."
Oh.
And I didn't understand. I didn't know that was in there. And I was like, "Wow, that's beautiful." And he goes, "No, it's in there, Dad." And he goes, "That's what I feel with you and Mom, you know, that you guys kind of connected on that."
How wonderful for them that they've got to see that. And I've talked with you several times outside of the camera, and you always talk about Annette and how much you love her. And if anybody follows you on social media, it's very clear you have such a nice love story. And what a blessing for your sons to grow up with that.
Thank you. And you know, like marriage, it's work. You know, it's work. But I always tell people, I say, it's me though. I'm the one that gives her the work. You know.
How many years have you been married now?
We're close to 35. We're close to 35. Yeah. So you figure 88. So you know, I think next year's our 35th. So.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's and I'm so glad you shared about that, because like I said, it's an inspiring story, and and it's so genuine, and I love to see your posts when you talk about how much you love her.
Thank you.
So besides your parents, was there anything else that influenced you? Maybe teachers or friends or jobs that you did in your early youth?
That kind of left an impression, you think, on my vocation, or just as in life doing something positive?
Well, gosh, either question is good, but I was going to lead towards your vocation because it's so interesting. So, but if it was even like, you know, clearly your parents influenced your work ethic and a lot of your principles, but the direction that you took in your work is interesting. So. Was there something that, well, we can go back and talk about your work in a minute, but how about if we start with, did you do any jobs in high school?
I actually, because of my his position, we would do the summer and go over and work, but the work was teenage work, where you know, in Arizona, you have the weeds that go crazy, and then you have the fire issue, right? And then they were selling railroad ties, so that could be an issue of safety, so they brought in, like us, and then the owners' kids came, and other friends that we had who were to make some money, and we just, you know, cleaned the weeds up. And then we were around the industry, so sometimes for the summer, we would be employed to do different tasks for the actual company that were company related. I had a paper up in Tempe. Yeah, I did that. I was terrible at it. I'd get up late. I was awful.
But that's getting up early in the morning. Was that when you still got up early in the morning and wrapped the papers and went around in either a car or a bike?
And then you went to the homes to collect the money.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, that was awful. They were generous on keeping me on, because I was bad. I was really bad. And then, but there is one thing I wanted to share. I think it's kind of interesting, and I'm going to take you guys back to the year 1983. Okay. And at that time, I was at Tempe High School. I graduated from Marcus, but I was at Tempe High School. And I walked up to school in the morning, and you meet with your buddies, and you chat it up, what happened the night before, or just whatever. And they were talking about this documentary that they seen on PBS, Channel 8. And it was called Style Wars. And I walked up, and I was involved in art. I liked art. I wasn't the best artist, but I liked it. And they were talking, they're going, yeah. They said, did you see Channel 8? Did you catch Channel 8 last night? I said, no. And they said, there was a show, Style Wars, and there's these dudes in New York, and they're painting their names on subway cards with characters, and they're going all around the city. And it's called bombing. They called it going all city. And I said, bombing? And when I heard the word bombing, to me, that was a more cultural term for me, La Bomba, which was a lowrider that was a vintage car. Oh, okay. And I said, they're painting murals of lowriders? They go, no. I said, no, it's like, you know, lettering and style. And this was totally 1983, brand spanking new out here, because I'm just a Chicano kid living out here, and I'm familiar with work with spray paint. That's what the New York guys were doing. We're using spray paint, but it was more territorial graffiti that I was familiar with, gang graffiti, and that's a style within itself now that is now celebrated in the fonts.
Okay.
And that's all I knew about that, the roses, the lowriders, drawing quinceañeras, prison tower, all this other stuff that was just around. And back in 83, we didn't have the luxury of the internet because it didn't exist. So I couldn't go home, YouTube it, oh, this is it. You just waited till that thing came on again, you know. And that took a little while for me because you had to kind of monitor that, you know. And so what I did was I went to the library there at the high school, and they had a book there called Getting Up by Craig Castleman. Mostly black and white images of what my friends were talking about, a couple of color center leaves, and I was just blown away. Now this I had never seen in my entire life. Oh, kind of, I'll get back to that. But it was so brand new as a teenager. I'm just like eating it, reading, digesting, learning about the pioneer crews in New York, the ex-Vandals and Wicked Gary, all these guys, Leaky Onis, these famous guys to me as a youth, like, and they're doing this amazing work, Zephyr, Crash, and I'm just going crazy. Say Adams, looking at the work, and so I was like, I got bit in the sense, I started drawing like that, doing the artwork, and I remember going into my dad's garage there in Tempe and found a derelict can of spray paint, went out to the alley, and I walked away from our property as far as I could, and I drew this character of the devious duck. It was kind of like a spin-off of Howard the Duck with the crown tilted forward, and I drew it, and then I was going to translate it from my paper onto the wall with a spray can. Now,
just one can of paint?
Just one can, yeah. This is my first go around doing this. So I had it, took my south palm, left-handed, and I outlined what I drew, and lo and behold, it worked. And if it was like a film, that's when the music started, you know? And I was like, I'm on. And so I told all my friends that were close to me, I said, check this out, man, read this book. And they got into it. I said, we're going to go bombing, you know? After 9/11, we dropped the term bombing. You know, we dropped it. But prior to that, it was all go. And so you remember the lingo, hey, that's the bomb type, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so we went out, and we were just like, what we call rockin' walls. And we just weren't we weren't just tagging. A tagging initially is your signature after you do a masterpiece. And so we were doing masterpieces and then putting our names on it. And so this was us. Back then, 83, 84, 85, if you got caught, you got a field card. It wasn't a felony yet.
I know what a field
card is. Yeah, it was a misdemeanor. And so this was kind of like, so, you know, there wasn't much to lose, you know, you're still a teenager in that. And so that was like my blast off on that. And it was 2019, we had received an award, the city of Tempe, with a servant in art in the community. And I was joking with Mitchell, and I said, we were at an art in the park thing, and we were painting with the children, and he was painting a little bit. And I joked with him, I said, hey, I got to send you a bill. He goes, really? For what, did you do something? I said, yeah. All that work I did in the 80s, man. I said, you got to pay up. And we had a chuckle. It was funny, you know. We had a chuckle. And so that was kind of like where I branched off, you know, graduated from school, did a season at MCC. That was the extent of it. And I was going to major in advertising art and criminal justice. I was aiming to be a police officer.
Okay.
So isn't that kind of interesting, you know, that conflicts? And I was mad in love. Things changed. We got married, you know, and we did this life together. We attempted to have this life together. And so you're young and you're just working, you know, and I know in the 80s there was I know we got this whole looming type of recession on the bubble or whatever is going on now, but 80s we had something weird going on too, you know, Black Monday, I think they called it or whatever. Yeah. And so, but you're going through life. And my brother-in-law, he worked for the school district. Tempe School District, Joe Sanchez. And he had said, hey, Broadmoor, he says they want to do a mural. And he goes, I know you can paint because I cleaned up some of your work around the schools. And he was a great guy. And he says, why don't you come in and do some work? And I said, and I had never made a dime off of art, you know, of what I do. In fact, I was kind of like trying to be a real strong purist, and I didn't want to take the money. I wasn't doing it for that. I was doing it for myself. And he told me, he goes, they couldn't pay you, but they're going to get you as much paint as you want, and you'll have your piece there. And I said, let's do it. So I did it. And about a year down the road, they had a meeting here in the McVitie Architects, a firm in North Tempe, and they saw the work. So they had hired me, and I brought one of my colleagues in, my partners to come in, and we did a couple of things for commission. There was a club in South Tempe, bordered Phoenix, on Baseline Road called Out of Water. And Eamon Wardy, mad cool dude, he had graffiti on inside his club. And then I remember I went in and I said, hey, let me do some stuff. He goes, what do you charge? I go, I tell you what. I said, let me do this wall. You buy all my paint. And if you like it, you throw me a few $100s. If not, don't worry about it. You don't have to pay me, but I keep the paint. And he goes, all right. He liked it so much, he built 2 more walls in the place. And he was so mad cool. Him and Wardy, he started helping me. He goes, you're going to do 6 feet under. There's another club over here on Rule in Tempe. And so he was helping me, like, this is what you probably should be charging. And he was mad cool. And he was young. He had like a Porsche, it said One Set Kid on there, but he was young. I remember the actor from 21 Jump Street. He looked like one of those fellows, Greco. I think his last name was Greco, and that's what it reminded me of. But he was mad cool, and so I started getting my feet wet and doing, some commission work.
That's a big thing, though, to try to figure out how much to charge. I love how you came up with at the beginning. Buy my paint, but then to have kind of a mentor, or at least somebody that could give you some advice on what to even charge for your kind of work.
Right, because you're kind of scratching your head on that, and even prior to that, where I wasn't looking to get paid for, I was doing my thing, and I remember off of the US 60, there used to be a canal that ran over the US 60. The canal ran over it on top, and there was a structure there, the chain link structure over the freeway. When you drove under, it's like you're going to Fiesta Mall, kind of out of Tempe. And I kept looking at that spot. It's a nice spot. And for me, it was a visual billboarding. You drive by and they have McDonald's in your face. They got, Burger King in your face. They got whatever, Joe Camel, whatever in your face. And I was like, oh, there's some artwork up there. And so I did. We went out and we did some artwork up there, and
now, was that without permission?
Oh, everything in that time was,
okay.
This was, none of this was really accepted. It was a big riddle. One of the initial pieces was at one of my high schools. I'm not going to say which one, all right? But anyways, and we did a Christmas thing. And it was Merry Christmas, Cascade Blue, Baby Blue, the snow, Mickey Mouse, Santa garb, really cool on the racquetball courts. I had PE the first hour, so we lined up facing the racquetball court. So that next morning, the principal and the administration came out and they looked at the wall. This was brand spanking new in Arizona. It didn't exist yet. And so they didn't know what to do with it. They thought, did the art classes, did they come out here and do this? Because it was all in good taste. And they were like, what do we do with it? They left it up for like a week after Christmas break. It was gone. They figured it out. And so it's.
And there was no cell phones then.
No.
Really, so you couldn't even take a picture with your phone.
We would take as many pictures as we could because it was part of the vocation. 35 millimeter cameras or the disc camera. However, when you got it developed, you didn't know what it was going to look like. The lighting, these are just basic stock cameras. You didn't have all the apertures and all that. It was just, so sometimes you got them and there's like the sunlight coming. I didn't know which way to go in the sun. I didn't understand any of that photography. But this was just some of the first initial things. Well, the one that I was mentioning off the US 60, one of the newspapers saw it and they wanted to interview him. And I was, young, crazy young. And one of the art teachers had approached me and said, hey, there's a guy. She goes, I know the style you do. And she was mad cool. I'm not saying that was you, but there's someone who wants to interview an artist. If you know who that is, I think it's you, but you might want to. And I was like, and I was really like, I didn't want to incriminate myself. I was like, no, I'm not. And I trusted her because she was good. It was just like an educator, right? She was good, and she saw the value in what I was doing. And this was brand new, She saw the value, and I met with the reporter, and then they did a story on, what I was doing. And so it was one of the first publications, I guess, of it.
Yeah.
And then ASU, down the road, they did more articles, other stories, and then ASU got wind of one of them. And then that's when they had said, hey, we went into the university, the art museum, and then they said, hey, if you could do one thing with your art, what did you want to do? Like a wish. And I said, I would love to have an art show. And they said, all right, we're going to give you one at the Nelson Fine Arts Center. That was my first solo show.
Oh my gosh.
And so, so we painted,
So would that have been like in the late 80s?
No, that was actually in the 90s when that happened, because they caught up with later publications in that. And so it was just, for me, what was going on was it was taking something, and I want to quote ancient text scripture, that which was meant for evil, it turned around for good. And so that's kind of what I was seeing happening. Like, I'm going to confound the wise with the foolish things. Today, 2022, they call it street art now. It's the most hottest art on the planet right now. And so it's a blessing to see that happen. But like everything, you got to start, and sometimes there's resistance on it. We didn't have allocated space to do, like, you want to do macrame, you go do macrame, I'm dating myself, you could do oils, you go in the Pile Center and learn whatever, acrylic, whatever, oils. But for this aerosol style of spray paint, it was so brand new, there was no place to facilitate it, and it still had the bad connotations of vandalism. The champ says it best, he goes, you could take a paintbrush, and I can go across the street, and let's even say that I'm Michelangelo or whoever, and I'm painting something that looks just like the Mona Lisa, but it's done with the brush, but there's no permission, it's now graffiti. And that's the whole thing. But now you go into the art stores and the spray paint is now a vessel.
Yeah.
Here in the valley, you have the Blick, Jerry's Artorama, of course the Michael, so you have that. And so to be able to see that, flourish, and for ASU, I owe them much gratitude to what they believed in a kid.
Yeah.
This is Chicano kid. The Tempe Center of the Arts used to be at Tempe Beach Park.
Yes.
Right? And where the swimming pool was at. And they had one of the curators there, and they also took a chance with me and built a structure during one of the Mill Avenue art events, and we got to paint out there, and these were people that were just like, hey, I see something, in you, and for me, for where I was standing, I'm like, this is pretty damn cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Now tell us a little bit about Champ and Christian are born, but I know that at a very young age, Champ, did he start following you around or going to places with you? Because, there's even photos of him being little tiny guy.
Oh, yeah.
So tell us about him joining you.
Champ, when he was born, and I'm just like this very proud father, and I'm blessed with my firstborn son, and he, my buddy, I like to believe he's still my buddy, And
how old is he now?
He's 29.
And he's a
father now. Yeah, he's a father. We have a granddaughter. And so he's in that chapter of his life. And he was always with me. And when I went painting and I had him with me, my partners, the other graffiti writers, were there. So they've seen him since he was small. A famous artist out of New York at a symposium in Tucson, Lady Pink, she held him. He was connected. These were like his theos, his graph uncles, he calls them. And so I didn't really, both of my sons, I didn't want them to necessarily follow after their father's footsteps, because I want them to be themselves. And I think that's important. And so I kind of let them be. And Champ, like 5th grade, I believe, and if I'm getting it wrong, he'll correct it, but he had a real brilliant kid, and sometimes more smarter than the educators, And he had gotten a demerit and another demerit, and I said, hey, I got to ground you, man. And I said, no video games, no TV. You want to do anything in my art room, the documentaries, read a book, So he grabs Style Wars.
Oh, that's what he grabbed.
That's what he grabbed, Style Wars. And he watched it. And so that weekend, the next thing I know, he kept watching it over and over, and then he had they call it little black books, where it's just a hardbound book, blank pages, you do artwork in it. And he was drawing. I have it today. I still have it.
Oh, good.
And he was doing his stuff, and I was looking. I was going, okay, it might be a little phase, but he kept on and on. He was interested in it. And so I saw that because he had an artistic talent too, and I saw that, And when he started saying, hey, I want to paint. So then I took him to what I call boot camp, and I gave him the worst paint on the market, a lot of water. I gave him a big metal panel, and it was frustrating for him, but I told him, metal is very non-porous, and when you spray, it's going to fight you back. Spray paint is one of the art elements, or art tools rather, that it demands your respect. And if you're there too long, it's going to drip on you. You got to have finesse. You got to treat it right. And so I told him, I said, once you master that metal, I said, and you get to a wall, and then when you use the fancy paint, that's now it's marketed, it's art purpose paint, I said, it's going to be like butter. And in high school, I took him with me to another artist from New York, and we did we painted on a block wall, and it's what happened. He was able to really just take care of business, and then my friend from New York, he looked, he goes, hey, Such, man, your boy, he's nice, And I just looked, and I was thinking of the training. It's the whole wax on, wax off. And today, we both have two different styles, but I believe he surpassed me, but that's what I want for my children. I want them to go farther than Dad. And he calls me the coach now. He's my QB. And so it's been nice, but he's an artist, I'm an artist, and sometimes you have that creative difference. And but he's real wise, so I have to kind of blend over to what he's trying to teach me because of the color and he studied art, and so he has a deep understanding of it. Me, I'm more of what you call a natural, and so he has this rooted foundation. Christian, he can do art. I've trained him in spray paint. He's really good, very disciplined. Totally different than Champ. Them two are night and day. And I remember one day he pulled me aside and he says, Dad, I know this is the family business. He says, but I don't love it like you and Champ do. And I said, Mijo, thank you for bringing that to my attention. It took a lot of courage. I said, and I want you to do what you're going to do. I said, if you're going to play baseball or you're going to get into whatever you're going to get into, I want to pour into you. And so he has that artistic, ability in him. So he does digital art.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah. And so it's really, and he's pretty good at photography too, I think. And so really proud of him. And he's a young man, so they're both growing into their own. And I know with the COVID, we had a pause button on a lot of stuff, but hopefully we're turning that corner. We can get forward, get on in life, and but it's been an adventure.
You have a studio in Tempe where I know you do at least some projects with Champ. Can you share? You've done things like Valley Metro and schools, and can you share some of the projects that you've worked on together, and even maybe separately?
Absolutely, we did Frank School. Oh yeah. Okay, it's in the Tempe district. Because
they just rebuilt it.
Yeah, they rebuilt it. It's a brand new school, and we've done probably about, I'm gonna guess, close to a dozen murals in that school. We did Wood School, which is even newer. Wood School was done in 2020, and we did probably the same thing. Probably about, I would assume, probably like 12, probably a dozen murals. I'm gonna stick with that number. So those are some of the projects we did with Tempe. There's the Rise on Apache in their lobby. Is the scenic of Mill Avenue Bridge and the mill and the mill itself, Hayden Mill, and it's in the lobby. So those are some of the projects we've done together. And some they're art specific, where you listen to what they want, and then you kind of digest it, and then you bring forth your design, your interpretation rather of it. The schools are really, they allow us to fly, because they know what we're capable of doing. So they give us freedom. The mascot's a panther. What can you do? And then we just go, we have at it. Some projects are, we want 3 cactuses here, 1 here, we want the sun here, we want, and so you're kind of painting by numbers, but hey, it pays the bills.
It's still your style. And
and I'll paint your toenails. And I get it. I'm not ridiculous in that matter. Maybe I'm too old to be ridiculous, and so I get it. We did on downtown Tempe, there's the Shred Club, which is those motorized one-wheelers, like the skateboards, and then they're like the scooters. And we did that was all graffiti based, which was really fun. So that has a lot of cool information. We really enjoy doing that. That was cool. Smaller one was I did the utility box when I was chosen to do one of the utility box on Ash, which is all that newer development that's going on there, and the streetcar it stops right in front of it. And so so it's
and I know it's not Tempe, but you did the most beautiful mural for Serrano's in Chandler. It's faith, family, food, and it is a beautiful, colorful mural that I know people go by there just to take photos, in front of it. So, and the other mural too at Santan.
At the Santan,
that's what people take. That mural is actually on like the Chandler Visitors Bureau.
On their brochure.
Yeah, because it's really cool. It has the I don't know beer terms, but it has like the brewery.
I failed to remember the name of the
whatever holds the beer.
I forget what they're called. Once we're done with this, I'm gonna remember it.
And beautiful colors, and so lots of city things too. And
the neat thing about Serrano's that you mentioned that, and check this out, this is all like a sneak preview kind of thing. They have the Serrano's in Tempe, right? Rural and Guadalupe Road. It's not operable now. They're revising that, and it's going to be called Pronto.
Okay? Same family.
Same family. I just finished a mural for them.
Cool.
Just finished a mural for them. Just finished it like just a few days ago, and so that brings it back to Tempe, right? And so, but they're so generous. They do so much in the community. They are a light, and they're a good example to me as well. And Rick and them, Sarah, the whole family, they're just amazing.
Well, and in addition to your artwork, I know, I hear people talk about, they also appreciate the work you do in the community. So I know you've taught youth at Vision Gallery and in Tempe at events. And so tell us a little bit about, maybe there's an event in Tempe, Mill Avenue, or some event, and young people might be a little hesitant. It looks interesting to them, but they don't know what to do. How do you make them feel comfortable and excited? Because I've seen it happen, where then they feel excited that they get to try something. So you're working with youth to make them feel more excited about art.
With the youth, even the children, I'm going to quote one of my teachers from Tempe High, who was at the auto department. They don't have that anymore. And I remember you walk in and you may not know much about doing anything with the car. And I remember he told us this, and I repeat him in my lessons. He goes, don't be too anxious about this. He goes, it's as easy as you turning that knob to get in this classroom. And it made me feel like, wow, okay, I can do that. So I quote that a lot, to the students. And with Tempe itself, Champ and I are both Tempe District Studio artists with the city of Tempe.
Okay.
So we visit every 5th grade grader in the district. He'll take half the schools, I'll take the other half, because there's not enough meat on the bone for the season to do one person to do all the schools. And so we go in every 5th grade class. We're there for 3 days for each class, 80 minutes. And some schools have 4 to 6 5th grade classes, some have 2. So you're in there. I just was at Thu School today, and then on Monday I'll be at Laird, then I'll come back and do Thu again, the special needs class. And so this is what we do. And
every 5th grader is going to get to
every 5th grader is going to get, they're either going to get my class, which is street art fonts, taking the alphabet. I give them a little history on the alphabet, where that all came from, the Sumerians, the Phoenicians, and I say, now it's yours. And I said, the graffiti fonts or street art, and I'm quoting a pioneer named Zephyr, and he told me in Chandler, he goes, this is the only art known in world history that was made by youth for the youth. And I tell them, that's why it's yours, it belongs to you, and it's why it's so powerful. And so they pick a word, something to do with themselves, or a nickname, and then I have a schematic of the alphabet letters, and they take it and then we embellish it. And I say, okay, now I'm gonna teach you how to do drips, and I use letters. Like, hey, this letter in the alphabet, do this letter here, and then it makes this design to make it easy for all of them to be able to do it. Not everybody's artistic. I understand that, Not everybody's a mathematician, because I'm not, And so I try to make it very approachable and keep them comfortable and encourage them. Because these are the mover and the shakers of our future, And so, and I promote kindness, and I promote them being good to each other and esteeming themselves lower than each other. And I put these little seeds, and they may not mean a lot to them at that time, but hopefully down the road they will. I being at Tempe High and I was in detention. Figure that, right? Being in detention. And it wasn't a teacher, watching us for detention. They had a guest come in. And it was this one individual, and he had a great story about coming up out of drug addiction or being around it. And so it was a powerful, powerful story. Now I'm a teenager, and I had heard him, and it stuck within me. I still went as a teenager, clumsy and doing all this other stuff. But at the end of the day, it allowed me, it gave me a boundary. And it allowed me to not go past that, because I remembered his story. And so I'm hoping that with some of these children, that they'll remember that. Yeah. It'll be a seed that'll germinate.
Definitely.
And so it's just important. It really is. I'm not being cliche-ish or the thing to say, but I truly believe that.
Well, and that you reach all those fifth graders and you can plant those seeds and let them experience art and also get some of the history of it as well is just so many bonuses. So thank you for doing that, because that's wonderful for Tempe students.
No, we enjoy it. It's nice. Thank you.
Does faith or spirituality play a role in your life? And if so, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. It plays a big role in my life. I come up through, the school of religion. I'm going to use that word, different faiths, and my father, converting, and just different things in my life. And I experienced a lot, I really did. And when you're a young person and, you're in the roof of your parents, and my parents, I understood this one thing about my parents, is they were just trying the best that they could. And that's all we do for our kids. Sometimes we don't make the best decisions on that, but it's done with good intentions. And so as life progressed, I had to at one point have my own connection with the Creator, whatever title anybody wants to put for that, not promoting a religion. And I ended up connecting with an Israeli, Uri Harel. He's late Uri Harel, he passed away. And I got to learn the text in its Hebrew form, in its original form. And I was really amazed with that, because I wanted to do it for art purpose. And each letter has curvature and angles, everything has a meaning, it's beautiful. And I really fell in love with it. And it really helped me as a person. It opened my horizons, and I had tunnel vision. My way, this religion, everyone else doomed, you fire brimstone, that's what you get. But I realized reading through the text, that's not what it's about. It really isn't. And so I connected that way. And he had a seminar, Uri Harel, and my pastor, it's like my best friend. We've known each other, like he was a youth pastor, and we'd go to youth camp, and we'd have our khakis and everything on. And he was mad cool. He was from California. He knew that life too. So it was really cool, and he was always so cool with us. And he said, because they would get on us because the way we dress at the church camps, and he goes, hey, the difference with you guys and some of these kids, goes, you guys got your cards on the table. He goes, that's who you are. And he's my best friend, and he's just a good guy. But we went to this seminar with Uri, and it was an all day, but it felt like 20 minutes. Oh. So Uri became a really good friend of us and taught us a ton of good stuff. And so I have that as a piece of me. In me now when I read text. But I learned, this is for myself, I learned not to be ridiculous, and everybody's on their own journey, on their own lane, and sometimes they just haven't arrived yet, and I got to have empathy and compassion for them. Otherwise, where does that put me? Yeah. And so when I really try to promote that, I share that with my sons, both of them. And they're growing, they're young. When we're young, we're,
I know, I miss when I was in my 20s and 30s and knew everything.
Well, yeah,
right about everything.
Exactly, right?
Remember those days?
Oh, you're so right. And so, and then with Annette, my wife, she's right there with me. And I think she's I'm not going to use the word think. She's the stronger vessel. She truly is. And we work together, and she's very generous. And she tries to help as much and give as much as she can. And, we might not have the the fanciest car, the fanciest house, but we're able to take some of our resources and give. And I think that's, at the end of the day, that's pretty much what it's all really about.
Yeah.
And
enjoy family and appreciate life and give back. I mean, you definitely embodied that and are an example of that. I wanted to ask a little bit. You mentioned you were one of 3 Chicano families or kids in the neighborhood.
In South Tempe.
Yeah, how has maybe cultural diversity changed for the better or just different from when you first arrived?
Yeah, it's really interesting, and I'm gonna kind of get transparent here. Coming from the south side of Phoenix, which was predominantly Hispanic and Black, and then coming to Tempe, and we were, truly a minority. And when I came over, the group of kids that I met, everybody was really good with me. But I was new, and I brought a sense of newness to the group, and I rolled with it. And sure, I would, go to the Circle K or walk down the street, and I would get that occasional beaner, you spit, this racial slurs. And I'm just walking, sure I had a Pendleton on and all that stuff on, the garb, that's what we wore. And I was like angry, like, oh my God, how dare you? And I was just like, a young teenager, just angry. And I just kept rolling through life and just going and going and now what I see now, it seems it's different. The geography is different. There's probably way more Hispanic families in that neighborhood now than there was before. Things have changed, and I know, and again, I'm being transparent. This is me, coming from me. I just felt like, there was some years where the political thing changed, and it seemed like it was okay to hate, and it's heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking, and that's why with these youth, I'm like, you guys would change this. Be kind to each other. No matter what color you are, be kind to each other. Do what's right. Esteem yourself lower than the other, man. Uplift each other. Shine. That will reflect back on you. That's what it's about. Reflecting back. And that they can do this. Now, we know in life it's easier said than done, or it's a hard pill to swallow. But, we just got to have hope. And I'm not ridiculous. I'm not a fool. I get it. I get it. But me as a person, I gotta see what I can do, what I can do here. And there's so many things that are happening, and at the age I'm at, 53 and 54, and looking back, hindsight's always the best sight. And I just look and I see how things are they're changing. But you think during World War II, that was like their Armageddon. That was their end. Atrocities that were occurring, and we're humans, we're people, and so I'm just trying to roll with this thing like we all are, right? We all, get up and put our pants in, let's say one leg at a time, Main Street, Wall Street, whatever. We try to go and do what we can do. And it's a big topic, and I don't have all the answers, but I need to answer for myself, and that is being kind and being my brother's keeper the best that I can, and loving my neighbor, so that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, when you exemplify those things and it radiates from you and it shows in your work and in how you raise your kids and how you treat others, then that's what's going to come back, and also be an example, like you said. Even when you can plant a little seed, there's 5th graders that are going to remember that, and you've been doing that for years. So now there's
2015 is we're doing with the district. 2015.
High school kids and kids that are going to remember.
We're supposed to be at McClintock, I think, this new season, doing something there.
Oh, okay.
At McClintock High School, and I'll stay connected with you, and doing that. So.
Oh, so cool. Is there any other stories about growing up in Tempe? Maybe restaurants you went to, or stores you went to, or places you went for entertainment, whether they're still there or not, that you remember.
Yeah, see, underneath this mask, I got a smile from ear to ear.
I can see your eyes.
It being around, was it rural McClintock, Baseline Road, there was the Lake 6 Theater.
Oh.
Yeah.
My husband and I's first date. 45 years ago.
Yes. And so there's a lot of, we were able to roam around and walk and go through the lakes and just do all this fun stuff. And Starship Fantasy.
Oh.
Yeah, and I know the History Museum, they did the replica of it. I don't know if you got a chance to see it when they did that.
Yeah,
and
2 players, 2 quarters.
Yes,
at the Tempe History Museum.
Oh, gosh.
And there was also one at the Vision Gallery in Chandler.
Right.
But that was such a great exhibit at both places.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. That to me was me, you know, like Stand By Me. They took that journey, you know, in their town, and that was me just roaming around and new experiences. You know, the hip hop came, the b-boying came, the whole graffiti thing came. A lot of things were being developed right then and there in front of me in my youth. And so I was able to experience that. And then backing up a little bit, even as my childhood, I remember there's the Fry's, and it's on McClintock and Guadalupe Road, but it used to be a field. And they had a big, I think it may have been a poplar tree, a big, beautiful tree, and they would bring in the sheep. So they could eat and keep the grass level down. Mm-hmm. And I remember I was really amazed by that. You know, it's kind of urban, right? And I was looking going, wow. Or would that be rural? Would that be like a rural? Or I think it's rural. It'd be more rural where you have the livestock there. And so I was just like, I thought that was so cool. And I was like, this is really, really cool. It was, then across the street was the Godfather's Pizza, the Ong's Toy Store. And
that's where remember
the Penny Outlet was over here. Mm-hmm. And so all that stuff was just me growing up and seeing that and seeing the landscape change. Like some of the places I mentioned that I did art on, they're no longer, the buildings, the structures are no longer there. Yeah. They do not exist. Even Southern Pacific doesn't snake through our valley. It's UP, and the Amtrak used to come through, and that's not happening. So everything has changed, and I get it. We're getting older, and things, have to change and stuff like that.
But it's fun because people will remember those places.
Yeah.
The Godfather's Pizza, the Starship Fantasy, the Lake Six, even the field. I don't remember seeing the field with the sheep, but there will be people that remember that.
Yeah, it was. I mean, when we started driving south, it was, it was rural. Mm-hmm. There wasn't as many light posts that we had, so it was dark. You went and it was just desolate, and some of it was still the desert. And it's and now looking back, I'm like, man, that was a good time. Mm-hmm. That was and I know my sons, their childhood was experienced differently, not like mine, and I'm sure my granddaughters will be different too, but I'm glad I was able to be part of that generation where we still, we didn't have this device, you had
right.
to get on the phone and see what time it was. You check the time.
Now if you miss a show, you can just look it right up on the internet. You don't have to wait for it to repeat,
exactly.
A month later on PBS.
Yeah, Wizard of Oz came on once a year during Thanksgiving. And I just saw a little clip of Wallace and Ladmo, and I saw that and I was like, whoa. And then you just feel like a child again. And you're looking going, man, it's just, it was memorable, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely memorable.
It's fun to have those memories. Now, what would you like your sons to remember about you, your granddaughter, maybe other grandchildren that you have? What would you like them to remember about you?
I think for myself, what's most important, Champ already says this, is I want them to know how much I love their mother. And Champ says this, he goes, Dad, when your time comes, because none of us are getting out of here alive, because when your time comes, he goes, I'm going to write on your tombstone, he loved Mom. And I was like, yeah, and we've had some pretty cool conversations about that, Champ and I, and that's what both my boys, I want them to know that, come in the kitchen and me and Dad are still in a dance, and I'm not trying to paint this fictitious picture, because we're humans and we don't agree on everything, and because we're human, but I want them to know that, hey, I was crazy about your mom. And any trouble that arose is from me being a knucklehead. That's me, I'm sorry, us men. All right, we just it's funny when I teach the kids, I give them directions, I said, okay guys, I'm gonna throw us under the bus, but with these directions, if you don't quite understand, look over at one of the girls, and believe me, they're probably doing it right. And they're like, oh, Mr. Such, I go, I know, I'm sorry. And then they try real hard and they prove me wrong, and I'm like, all right, you guys, good.
Goes back to that, just work hard.
Oh yeah.
And is there any other thing that you'd like to share, for posterity, anything about your work, your family, growing up and living in Tempe, people you've worked with? Anything I didn't ask you about that you might want to share?
I think we covered a lot there. I'm drawing a blank canvas right now, but I'm just reminiscing of the summers and walking. And I know the temperatures were up, but you're a kid. You didn't seem like it was.
I know, right?
And I just remember doing that, and even looking down at the sidewalk and just being a kid. And I remember being like 15, 16, and I remember sitting there going, "This is a good age, but it's not going to last forever." I remember that moment. I tried to like grab onto that moment.
Oh, that's some insight.
And, yeah, right. And so, and just with my art, and I'm very grateful that I can do that. And I think at the end of the day, I need to lay down. And this is, and I'm grabbing this because Pastor Dion Fowler, he says this, and it's true. At the end of the day, I need to lay down my head on the pillow and have peace. And if I don't, I need to reevaluate what I'm doing. And I'm grateful that I can have that, And of course, we have anxiety. We have things that come at us in life, right? We're in these new chapters in our life. So these new things come and worry us, and the unknown, and that's really challenging. But and again, another hard pill to swallow. But to let it go and have that hope and peace and go, okay,
Wow.
And so I try to do that, and my art is part of, it's beyond my therapy, it's part of me, and it's when I paint, I think a lot, and I reminisce a lot in my mind, and I feel that that's when the giver of all good things begins to speak to me, where I can create, and do stuff like that. So, it may sound silly to some, but that's just me,
Oh, that's great. Dwayne, do you have any questions?
Yeah. First of all, you're amazing. You are really amazing.
Man, I wish that were true.
You are amazing.
I wish that were true, right?
You are amazing. But so you've done such a great job of finding a passion and using that passion to make a positive difference in the community. What advice do you have for other people who maybe are struggling to find that passion and then struggling again to try to figure out how they can use that passion to make a positive difference in the community?
I love that question. And there's a lot of artists and a lot of muralists out there. There's a lot. And one of the things that, and again, this is me, when I started, my ambition wasn't to make a dime. It was the true passion. The New York forefathers, they were risking their life painting the subways and getting caught by the authorities. They were risking everything to do their art, the passion for it. And so with that initial setting, I think we have to chase after, if it's that gift, whatever it is, music, whatever you do, you got to first and foremost have the love and go, are you willing to do this for nothing? And that's where that begins. So they have to really come forth with that. Because sometimes it's out the gate, what do you charge? Well, you're 6 months into this, it's not fair. And I'm diplomatic on it, I'm not a jerk about it. If whatever they feel their value of their worth is, and they have to go after that. But I think they need to start with that. As I'm a purist in that form, when Champ and I paint, we don't use projectors or the mural apps. I don't even know what that is. I'm gonna look into it because I don't know what it is. Everything's organic. We do it the way of the forefathers, what we call the way of the samurai, or the way of the Jedi. It's all handcrafted. So when you see Champ paint, or us paint, Champ more, he's just knocking this thing out. And I'm not hating on those that use those tools, those assistants, because everybody's on their own journey, right? So I'm not, but I'm just talking about ourselves. So we try to keep that purest form to it. And I think as someone who's chasing after that, your ambition has got to be pure too, and then I think then it begins to be a garden that's going to grow good fruit. Otherwise, you're going to be frustrated. It can be challenging out there on that. And so that's what I would have to say, if that makes sense, and if it doesn't, forgive me, because I'm probably not saying it right, but
No, it does. You have to really have that passion, and then like you did, maybe have some guides or talk to some people that are doing something similar, and you will take your own path, but they can give you some guidance like you got on how much to charge or what path to take, and then you take your own path. But you sought and valued the people that could give you some guidance, whether it was somebody that believed in you, like an art teacher, or somebody that you learned from, or the book. I mean, I love how you went to the library and got a book.
Yeah, and my spiritual leader, Pastor Dion, he's been, when I have a show, he's there, and he sees the value. But he's been sitting in the same, underneath the same chapel, or what you call it, when he was younger, and some of the ministers didn't quite understand my gift, and so it was like, no type of thing, but he saw the value in it, and he always saw the value in it, so it helped me. I'm like, he sees the value in it, and he encourages, because, you know, I saw this reading the text, and I shared it with someone. I said, you know, the very first covenant that the Creator gave to man was art, and they said, how so? I said, he had a rainbow, the Creator put a rainbow, go as art. He showed an art piece to make a covenant. That he's not gonna, the earth isn't gonna, that's not gonna go that route again. I said, art is very powerful, and I go, and that's how the Creator speaks to me, through art. Speaks through everybody, through music, through any, you know, nature, whatever, what have you, you know, because we're all different. And so, but that's how I saw that, and I was like, it really is a marvel, you know, it truly is. I think when they had built the tabernacle, that he even gifted some with the gift of art, so they could create these art pieces. And I always thought that was just, I'm going to use this word, I felt it was like magical, like, wow, man, I'm watching Lord of the Rings or something. It was really cool. But it strummed the chords to my heart, and that's what allowed me to have that, my own true relationship, you know. And I think that's what everybody needs to find. And then, you know, we should have some guidance too. It's very important. You got to have guidance, definitely do, you know. Like a tree, sometimes it has stakes for a few years, and then you can finally remove, especially our monsoon season, right? Or it's going to snap.
Those challenges for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, like Dwayne said, you're amazing. It was a pleasure to speak with you.
Stop it.
And it's a benefit to Tempe and beyond to experience you and your art, and Champ as well, and your family. It's just wonderful. So thank you for taking the time to share your stories.
Thank you. I mean, I still have my bumps and bruises and my rough edges, and I'm still not the man I should be, but I'm trying to be. And like I tell students, aim high. And if you don't make it and you go right here, that's good, because you're not down here. So we continue to grow together, and we make mistakes and we learn from them. That's the main thing. So you gotta learn from your mistakes, and then we can continue to grow. So.
Good lessons. Thank you so much.
No, thank you guys. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.